Welcome, curious minds and seekers of hidden histories. Today we invite you to embark on a profound journey through time, a journey that will take us deep into the heart of a fascinating historical and philosophical controversy that has quietly echoed through the centuries. We are going to explore an extraordinary narrative that reveals a stark, almost unimaginable contrast between two monumental figures in Islamic history regarding a subject that remains intensely relevant and debated even today: the true nature, spiritual essence, and societal status of women. Prepare to have your preconceived notions challenged as we dive into a hidden world where deep mysticism, unconditional love, and strict orthodoxy dramatically collide. This is a captivating story of divine beauty, fierce theological battles, and a love so transcendent that it completely blurred the lines between earthly desire and heavenly devotion. So, settle in comfortably, open your minds to new perspectives, and stay with us until the very end, because what you are about to discover might just change the way you perceive history, spirituality, and the profound power of love itself. To truly grasp the magnitude of this intellectual earthquake, we must first set the stage by examining the traditional orthodox lens through which women were historically viewed within the early Islamic societal framework. For centuries, the predominant narrative, heavily shaped by strict jurists and traditional clerics, framed women primarily through a lens of extreme caution, rigid restriction, and theological fear. This restrictive perspective was not born out of thin air. It was deeply rooted in the literal interpretations of specific teachings and widely circulated sayings attributed to Prophet Muhammad. Within this strict orthodox framework, the female presence was frequently categorized as a profound temptation, a dangerous distraction, and a primary source of moral and societal discord. Historical records and prominent traditions paint a remarkably austere picture of this mindset. Among the most famous of these sayings is the stark assertion that no temptation left behind for men is more harmful or destructive than women. Furthermore, a widely cited tradition documented in foundational texts even grouped women alongside black dogs and donkeys, stating that the passage of any of these three in front of a praying individual would entirely sever their spiritual connection and invalidate their prayer. This specific comparison was so startling that it provoked the intense and immediate wrath of Aisha, the Prophet's wife, who indignantly fired back, fiercely protesting that women were being unjustly equated with animals. Her documented anger stands as a glaring historical testament to the deep-seated humiliation embedded in such literalist perspectives. Other traditions further diminished the standing of women, famously and controversially describing them as being inherently deficient in both intellect and religious devotion. Consequently, the religious establishment built an entire social and theological fortress around this deep-seated fear. The traditional jurists obsessively focused on the physical form and the sensory allure of the female body, dictated that men must exercise the utmost caution and distance around them. In their strict interpretation, a woman was primarily a physical vessel of temptation that constantly threatened to derail a man's devotion, piety, and focus on the divine. The only logical solution, in their eyes, was suppression, total modesty, and strict societal separation, forging a fraught and fearful relationship between the genders. Yet, against this bleak backdrop of anxiety and rigid constraint, a radically different voice emerged, a monumental figure who dared to turn the entire theological paradigm utterly upside down. Enter the great Sufi master, Muhyiddin ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi did not merely disagree with the orthodox consensus, he completely shattered it. Where the clerics saw a dangerous physical temptation, Ibn Arabi saw the absolute pinnacle of cosmic beauty. Where the traditionalists saw a fundamental threat to religious faith, Ibn Arabi saw the ultimate glowing pathway to intimately knowing God.
Ibn Arabi's philosophy was nothing short of revolutionary and deeply shocking to his contemporaries. He flatly refused to reduce women to mere physical bodies, objects of lust, or beings to be feared. Instead, he elevated the woman to the exalted status of a supreme divine manifestation. For this brilliant mystic, a woman was not an ordinary human being to be hidden away in the shadows. She was the most perfect, vivid mirror, reflecting the truth, majesty, and beauty of the divine upon the earth. In a fiercely patriarchal era, where a woman's existence was heavily restricted to mere obedience, veiling, and domestic service, Ibn Arabi boldly declared a concept that rattled the very foundations of orthodox thought, stating that the greatest and most perfect witnessing of the divine truth is found in women. This profound statement was not merely fleeting poetry or superficial romantic flattery. It was the absolute cornerstone of a complex, fully realized spiritual philosophy. Ibn Arabi posited that the entire universe consists of manifestations of the divine truth, and human beings are fundamentally driven by an innate search for absolute perfection. However, this perfection does not exist in isolation. True completeness is found only in the seamless union of opposite cosmic forces, the active and the passive, the giver and the receiver, the masculine and the feminine. He argued that a man on his own is entirely incomplete and deficient, just as a woman on her own is incomplete. But the ultimate, unadulterated truth manifests most powerfully and clearly in the woman, because her very nature inherently embodies the divine qualities of absolute acceptance, ultimate containment, and boundless grace. These specific qualities, Ibn Arabi noted, are the closest reflections of God's infinite mercy. Therefore, when a man witnesses the beauty and essence of a woman, he is not falling into sin, he is actually witnessing the divine attributes of pure creation, tenderness, and absolute celestial beauty. But one must ask, how did a mystic, surrounded by a society dominated by strict, unyielding patriarchy, arrive at such a breathtaking and elevated philosophy? Was it purely a product of abstract intellectual meditation, or was it ignited by a real, beating human heart? The fascinating answer lies in a deeply personal, transformative, and somewhat mysterious chapter of Ibn Arabi's life, a chapter that beautifully blurs the delicate lines between mortal infatuation and divine revelation. During his profound spiritual travels to the holy city of Mecca, the young Ibn Arabi crossed paths with an extraordinary woman who would forever alter the trajectory of his mind, his soul, and his historical legacy.
Her name was Nizam bint Makin al-Din. Nizam was the daughter of a prominent Meccan scholar, but she was entirely a formidable intellectual and spiritual force in her own right. Ibn Arabi was utterly captivated and intensely struck, not just by her striking physical beauty, which he poetically described as being like the absolute core of the sun in its radiance, but by her immense intellect and towering spiritual presence. She was not just a beautiful face, she was a recognized scholar, a master of complex jurisprudence, an incredibly eloquent speaker, and a devoted woman who had perfectly memorized the holy texts. Her gatherings were famously described by him as lush, blooming gardens of both deep knowledge and overwhelming elegance. Nizam quickly became his ultimate spiritual and romantic muse. Deeply moved and forever transformed by her existence, Ibn Arabi composed one of his most famous, enduring, and controversial literary works, a poetic collection titled The Interpreter of Desires. This collection was an unapologetic, passionate, and vivid outpouring of profound love. In these bold verses, he vividly described her captivating eyes, her elegant posture, her enchanting smile, and the overwhelming, burning longing that completely consumed his soul whenever they met. He wrote of a love so universally expansive that his heart became capable of holding every form of worship, whether a green pasture for wild gazelles, a quiet monastery for devoted monks, a sacred temple for idols, or the holy Kaaba itself. His ultimate religion had miraculously become the religion of absolute love.
Naturally, in a heavily guarded society strictly policed by conservative clerics, such raw, intense emotional expression was viewed as highly scandalous and incredibly dangerous. How could a revered, scholarly, spiritual master write what appeared to be explicit, worldly romantic poetry about a living, breathing young woman? The religious establishment was fiercely outraged and quick to condemn him. They harshly accused Ibn Arabi of succumbing to profane earthly lust, fiercely arguing that he was blasphemously mixing pure, sacred religion with forbidden worldly romance. In their incredibly rigid mindset, a psychological state so deeply fearful of the human body and human emotion that it desperately viewed natural love as a shameful sin rather than a spiritual virtue, he had committed the ultimate transgression. The clerics mercilessly attacked his character, mimicking the tragic historical pattern where the orthodox establishment relentlessly persecuted and brutally punished other great ecstatic mystics. History had already witnessed the horrific fate of figures like Al-Hallaj, who was violently tortured and crucified simply for expressing a boundless ecstatic love for the divine and for humanity. The intense animosity toward Ibn Arabi reached such toxic levels that many clerics openly declared him a heretic, with some even cruelly plotting to deny him a proper burial in a Muslim cemetery upon his eventual passing. To fiercely defend his life's work, his profound vision, and his deeply held faith against these dangerous literalist accusations, Ibn Arabi was forced to pen an extensive, detailed commentary on his own poetry. He meticulously explained to his harsh critics that while he certainly did not deny Nizam's breathtaking physical beauty or his intense personal admiration for her, she was, in the grand cosmic sense, a profound symbol.
He argued that every vivid physical description of her in his poetry was in truth an intricate, deliberate metaphor for the infinite divine wisdom and celestial beauty temporarily manifesting in a perfect human form. Whether their captivating relationship was a genuine, unconsummated earthly romance, an ethereal, strictly spiritual bond, or a seamless, mysterious blend of both, remains one of the most compelling and deeply debated mysteries in the entire history of Islamic mysticism. There is absolutely no historical evidence that they ever formally married, but her profound impact on his soul was strictly eternal. She was the vital gateway through which he ultimately discovered and then taught the world that loving a woman deeply is not a dangerous departure from God, but rather the very essence of drawing intimately closer to the divine presence. Ultimately, Ibn Arabi's enduring legacy serves as a monumental testament to the boundless power of spiritual elevation and intellectual courage. While the strict traditionalists utilized theology to build a fraught, anxious, and deeply separated relationship between men and women, Ibn Arabi offered a luminous universe governed entirely by supreme reverence and profound understanding. He taught that genuine passion is never a catastrophic fall into moral ruin, but rather a magnificent ascending ladder into ultimate spiritual awareness. He boldly stated to a skeptical world that a man deeply in love with a woman is, in fact, unconsciously being drawn toward the absolute perfection of the ultimate creator.
In a deeply conservative era where man confidently viewed himself as the absolute center of the universe, Ibn Arabi arrived to quietly, fiercely insist that the vast universe cannot ever be truly understood until one learns to recognize and worship the divine, specifically within the feminine soul. His philosophy remains one of the most daring, controversial, and breathtakingly beautiful interventions in the whole of intellectual history. He bravely took the woman entirely out of the dark shadows of temptation and fear, and placed her firmly upon the highest possible pedestal of cosmic truth, forever challenging humanity to view pure love not as a heavy anchor that drags us down to the earthly dirt, but as the very brilliant wings that carry our souls to the highest heavens. What an incredibly profound and thought-provoking journey through the intricate, hidden corridors of history, philosophy, and the beautiful mysteries of the human heart. Do you find yourself agreeing with Ibn Arabi's elevated, deeply spiritual and romantic vision of love and the divine essence of women? Or do you perhaps side with the more traditional, cautious views of his era? Is love a dangerous distraction, or is it the absolute ultimate path to truth? We would absolutely love to hear your unique perspectives and insights on this fascinating historical debate. Please share your thoughts with our community down in the comments section below. If this deep dive into the hidden depths of history sparked your imagination and moved your spirit, please consider taking a brief moment to subscribe to the channel and give this video a gentle like so we can continue bringing you more beautifully profound stories from our shared past.
Thank you so very much for spending your valuable time with us today. And until we meet again for another captivating historical exploration, we wish you a wonderful, inspiring, and truly beautiful day.